Welcome back, wannabes and creators, to another episode of The Business of Art, the podcast that demystifies business for artists. And today, we have a very special treat for you. I know we're in the middle of our campaign for Monsters and Other Scary Shit, but I recorded a podcast for podcast with Tyler James from Comics Launch and Comics Tribe a few months ago. And with both of our launches, it's been very hard to fit it in. So I thought this would be a perfect time because we're launching a Kickstarter to talk deeply about how to fund a Kickstarter. And there's no better person that I know to talk about how to fund a comic Kickstarter than Tyler James. After all, his podcast is devoted to making comics the #1 most funded Kickstarter category. So head on to talk about Kickstarter, branding, his company, and his mission for 2007. We're going to get into it, but before we do, I want to remind you that we are in the middle of our Kickstarter campaign for Monsters and Other Scary Shit, a monster 224-page anthology about monsters. This is monsters of all types. We've got scary monsters, cute monsters, sci-fi monsters, fantasy monsters, and more. It's monsters from Monsters, Inc. all the way to Hellraiser. And a awesome cover by Aaron Alexovich, artist for Invader Zim. Inside are 30 different creative teams who've worked for Boom, Oni, Image, Marvel, Vertigo, and more. And on brands like Transformers, Star Wars, My Little Pony, Invader Zim, and many, many others. So check it out today at monsteranthologycomic.com. For just $40, you get the book shipped to you, no additional shipping charges domestically, a download of the cover, a digital download of the cover, and the PDF/CBZ files for you to enjoy. And that's all for just $40. So head on over to monsteranthologycomic.com and check it out today. Support Wannabe Press, support the business of art, and get an awesome, awesome anthology in the process. And while you're there, Tyler is currently running a campaign for John Lees and Alex Cormack's Sync #1 Welcome to Glasgow World Tour. And it is one of the scariest books I've ever read in my entire life. So while you're checking out my monster comic at monsteranthologycomic.com, head on over to Sync #1, the Welcome to Glasgow World Tour, and check out John Lees and Alex Cormack's book as well. With that being said, take it away, Tyler. Tell us what you're passionate about these days.
There's a lot going on, but one thing that I'm passionate about is working with a new group of creators. I actually just got off the phone with a little bit of a coaching call earlier today with a creator who's 22 years old. He's working on his very first comic book. He's sort of one of those guys with a million ideas and just an action taker and just get stuff done, but also is someone that I'm so excited to be working with him because it's basically like I'm hopping in Doc Brown's time machine, going back and being able to say, all right, I'm going to help you avoid the 10 to 12 to 20 mistakes that I made when I was right in your position, fired up, working on a million projects, and I'm going to help you miss some false starts by just sharing what I know and what I've learned, and also bringing him into the community of creators that I'm sort of assembling and working with in sort of small group environment. So I'm really excited about that, and just sort of one conversation, and you can just hear it on the other side of the Skype line of just, ideas going off in his head and him like immediately going off and doing the work. So that's one thing I'm super passionate about is just, it's connecting with creators and helping them make better art and comics and then getting it crowdfunded. So yeah, that's one thing I'm very excited about.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, whenever I have a conference call or a strategy session with somebody, and they always ask, about price, I'm like, well, it's not really about price. It's about how many years you want to cut off your journey from where you are now to where you want to be. Because, it's a 10-year journey. If you can cut 5 years off of that, I don't know, how much is that worth to you? How much value is that to shave 5 years off of what it would take to get to where you want to be.
Yeah, and it's tough, right? I mean, and I know it because I don't want to say I'm cheap, but I don't like to spend money. If I don't feel like I have to, and yet just about every time that I've invested in something that I was a little bit scared of, or that I was wondering whether or not it's going to make a difference in me, or whether or not I was going to get the value of it, as long as I did my research and as long as I, trusted the person, like 9 times out of 10, it's more than been worth it. And that goes from everything from, buying a $10 ebook to a $2,000 course. So yeah, or investing and outsourcing things and taking things off my plate, or investing in tools to make things a little bit easier. Like, it's hard to break out of that mindset of just DIY, do it all yourself. No, I don't need that. But man, I mean, like, it sort of goes back to my very first Kickstarter experience, where I did the DIY experience and went through the process of picking up 2 tons worth of books from the Port of Boston myself, and renting a U-Haul, packing and shipping them all in my own tiny apartment the month before I was to get married. Luckily, she still stuck around for the wedding. So I had that experience, and yeah, felt good about it. But to then do a little bit of work and a little bit of investment and work with people to show me how to get that set up so that I could have Amazon do 95% of that and save me money and hundreds of hours and thousands of dollars over the course. There's just a lot of things that we as creators, by not finding mentors, by not talking to people, by not investing in the right education, we could just, get so much farther faster. So I'm with you.
Yeah, man. And this is a long-term, this is something that you've been passionate about since at least you launched Comics Tribe, because I'm looking at the About page of Comics Tribe website now, and it says in the first line, Comics Tribe is a website and online community for comic book writers and artists. The site will feature quality content and resources for creators serious about improving their craft. So this has been something that you've been passionate about since day one of launching Comics Tribe, right?
Oh, definitely. I mean, 2011, January 1st, 2011 is when Stephen Forbes and I launched Comics Tribe. And prior to that, Steve had actually been doing a lot of writing in the forums over at Digital Webbing. And I had been writing for about a year for a site called Comic Related, and posting a sort of self-publishing / art and creating comics column over there. And Steve and I, through me hiring him to edit one of my books, I had met him, and we really sort of, after he, of course, tore me the worst, the most critical feedback that I've ever received, and tore a paper to shreds and had it look like an absolute murder scene when he was done with it. After that, but then that was a sort of a pivotal moment or a turning point where I'm like, do I want to have people pat me on the head and say nice job and not read my work and not really care about it and not take my thing to the next level? Or do I want to get serious about this and take my work as seriously as I'd want other people to take it? And part of that was, getting around people that know what they're talking about and have no investment in my emotional interests and my emotional well-being, and are going to give it to me straight and really level up. And so that was what working with Steve was. But as we sort of found that we had, very similar approaches in terms of, we're both sort of had the heart of a teacher, but we're also looking to, put works and books out ourselves. And so the idea of launching Comics Tribe, where we're going to share our self-publishing journey from the ground up and the lessons that we learn along the way, as we also try to put books out in the world and go from literally no distribution and self-published books to actually an imprint and take it, as far as we could take it, and we're still trying to take it even farther now. So that's definitely. But it's not just 2011. I went home. My mom had called me last year to go home and clean out the attic, lots of stuff from childhood. And I found in there one of my high school projects was to do a how-to video on something, and there it was, how to make comics the Tyler way or whatever. And so I've been doing this for a long time, man. I've been making comics and talking about making comics and publishing and creating for a long time. So I guess I'm just staying true to who I am and what I'm about for forever.
Yeah, man, that's great. And what I like is you guys set a long-term goal. This is 2011. This is now 2016. So it's been 5 years since you launched the site, and at least 6 years since you were in high school, I would assume. But you seem to have this long-term goal to get to where Comics Launch is now, where Comics Tribe is now. Did you guys start out with that end goal in mind?
I'd love to say that we did, but so much developed over, like, almost organically, and that's something that you hear people going back and forth where, like, some people say it's important. You have 10-year goals and 5-year goals and 3-year goals and plans for all of them, and then you see some research that says any goal longer than 9 months is a waste of time because, like, the human condition is not set up to have that sort of long-term planning, and really you're better off just keeping focused on sort of 90-day sprints, because what you're going to want, and so I think there are a lot of things that I didn't even know what I didn't know in 2000, at the start of 2011. All I knew was I wanted to create comics, and I wanted to steadily make them better, and I also wanted to build a tribe around people trying to create comics. But I didn't know that I was going to meet and get in the world with guys like Joe Mulvey, who was working on his own project, and I didn't know that I was going to be taking on more and publishing other creators' work. And beyond, even outside the Comics Tribe, the internal group. And I didn't, obviously all the conventions and all of the other things, I was doing some of that stuff prior, but, to have built the audience that we built, to have expanded it in directions that never would have thought. I mean, our whole the children's publishing, children's book publishing and horror-themed children's book publishing side of things, that was something that never would have even crossed my mind 5-6 years ago. But I think that's a good thing. I mean, when I met Joe Mulvey, for example, he was working on Scam and No Kids, Wild Man. Now he's still a wild man, but he has 2 little girls. And just today we're seeing the books for his latest children's book that he made for his little girls, called Mummy's Always Right, which we kickstarted earlier in the spring. And just today, pictures are posting up on Facebook and Twitter of people that are just getting those books in hand. And he shot me a message and just like, he's like, this is like seeing people with their kids and kids reading this book and just absolutely captivated with it. He's like, never in a million years would I have thought that would give me the kind of pride and kind of joy that it does, as someone that had always been gotten into this to be a comic artist and only that. But so, things change. Obviously being a parent is going to change a little bit. And so I think there are certain elements of it, the ability to make an impact, to share what we're learning, to hear from creators and interact with creators and work with creators in a way that's meaningful, was always something that has been a part of what we've been doing. But some of the projects and the actual books and even the success that we've had wasn't something that necessarily I could have plotted on a map and said that was how that was going to happen.
Yeah, I always had sort of a 10-year goal that I wanted to speak and be a speaker and teacher in this sort of thing that I'm sort of see the end goal of now, even though I don't know how far away it is. But I wouldn't say that I put that on a map 10 years ago. But I do think it's important, especially when you're starting a career, to sort of say, I want to be a comic book artist like Frank Miller. Let's say that's my 5-year goal. What steps do I have to take, in 3 years, a year, 3 months, and a month, and a week to get to that goal? And that goal might change over time, but having the end goal of I want to be Frank Miller at least puts you on a path and a direction. And that direction might be in 6 months you say, actually, I hate Frank Miller. I want to make kids' books. But at least having that path allows you to say yes or no to it. But it gives you a sort of hypothesis to go off of at first.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you got a much better chance of hitting something that you're actually aiming for than something that you're not. But you rewind 5-6 years, maybe I would have wanted, maybe as a writer you'd want to be Brian Bendis or like you said, Frank Miller. Fast forward now, maybe the working for the big two, that might not be your goal, and now you're going for the Kirkman, and that's a model that's more appealing to you. But giving yourself the ability to pivot and as you get more information and as you sort of grow and your interests change, I think that's definitely something that's important to recognize. But yeah, I mean, definitiveness of purpose is sort of what and it goes back to all the classics in terms of how to find success. A key is being defined in what you're actually trying to go for and what success actually looks like, and if you can't have clarity with that, whether it's talking about what a good a good script looks like, a good business looks like, a good marriage, a good relationship with anybody, I think a lot of it starts with having a clear vision of what that is in mind. So that's definitely something that I usually reserve this time of year, December, to sort of retouch back in with that vision and what's going forward.
Yeah, and I mean, me looking back as an outside observer, I certainly see comics I see the thread between Comics Tribe and Comics Launch, and even before that. And you were talking about building a community and and teaching and all of these things. You may not have thought you were going to have a podcast 5 years ago, but you certainly wanted to continue on that path of teaching and building a community and giving back to others, which is the narrative thread that I see at least tracking through, all of this stuff we've been talking about.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, my desire for a podcast came from my sort of rediscovering podcasts and the power of podcasting. I had listened, I had spent a lot of time listening to podcasts when I was doing more art stuff, and in 2015 or excuse me 2010, 28, 29, 2010, I was putting out over 100 pages a year that I was drawing myself back then. And when you're drawing, you can have that ear candy in the background. And then as I got more back into the writing and the publishing and the business side of things, sort of had less time for the podcasting and other things. But as I sort of changed up my morning routine, part of that was incorporating more podcasts as I got some exercise in, and then all of a sudden I'm listening to great podcasts every day, and of course you tend to become what you think about, and I was thinking a lot about podcasting and podcasters, and that sort of turned me on to doing that, and really with and what I was learning from a lot of podcasts and other books that I was reading is some of the issues or just sort of the things that or mistakes that were made with the Comics Tribe sort of grand vision that I wanted to see if I could, by sort of starting something new and a little bit different, a little bit I want, and so that's part of the reason why I didn't just lump the Comics Launch and it's not the Comics Tribe podcast that talks about Kickstarter as opposed to really its own entity, was that I wanted to see and just put some principles that I had been picking up and learning to use from something absolutely from scratch, and really hone in on, all right, the Comics Tribe itself is sort of it's kind of sprawling, right? Because when you think of Comics Tribe, you might be thinking about the books that we put out. Some people might be thinking about now the children's books that we put out and know us from that side. It might be the resources, and the resources might be for writers or self-publishers or for artists. And what I really wanted to do was I sort of realized that, like, let's niche down even further with this comics launch, and let's really just try to carve out one little area where comics launch could not just be, one of a list of places that you would go to find out about stuff, but I really wanted comics launch to be the authority for how you crowdfund a comic and graphic novel on Kickstarter and beyond, and so that was the Kickstarter stuff was, although all the stuff that I talked about on on Comics Tribe in my blogs over there, like the Kickstarter stuff was the stuff that was absolutely got most comments on, got most read, the highest engaged posts, most shared posts, and the most posts and things that I got questions about at conventions. And so I said, okay, I'm going to take that hint and let's niche down a little bit and really go focused and see if we can build a sort of satellite brand and a satellite show about that subject. Now, of course, we do branch out into other things, and I've talked about on the podcast. I've talked about Patreon, talking about Kindle, talked about some other things that are sort of fit in that beyond category. But what I've really found is by focusing on the Kickstarter side of things, it's attracted the kind of passionate following and engaged, sort of loyal, come back each week and listen and that was a little bit slower to happen over at Comics Tribe, just because I think we were talking about so much.
Yeah, and what I love about the name, the Comics Launch, is it doesn't say Kickstarter launch, doesn't say comic Kickstarter launch. So it's really, even though it is focused on Kickstarter and crowdfunding, it is also about how to launch a comic book into the world and then do it again and again and again and again and again. So it's a very clever name and allows you to grow into how to launch a product or how to launch a comic book in other mediums, in Patreon and all of these other things too.
Yeah, and the thing with the name, part of one of the challenges and one of the just things that I'll still be always wondering is, by putting comics front and center, we all know that comics is, among of all of the things that even on the Kickstarter platform, comics are among the smaller one of the smaller areas. And so, there is always the question, am I niching myself down too much? Am I potentially turning away all of the, authors and game developers and musicians that could get tremendous value of what I'm doing by putting comics front and center? And occasionally I'll get reviews like, wow, I almost didn't listen to this podcast because I thought it was just going to be for comic book people and I build games, but I've gotten so much value from this. But you know what? I'm taking the advice that people talk about where and the advice that I know you've heard about the importance of niching down and about the and how it's easier to pivot to other areas from a position of strength. And so, if you can establish yourself as the authority in a small niche, it's easier for you to you can take that authority and transfer that authority to some other niche, right? Or to some other area a lot easier than you could if you were trying to be an authority in everything or trying to do something that's very, very broad. And I think the fact that there are people that are launching comic book Kickstarters, and if they're going to choose between one of a dozen crowdfunding podcasts on iTunes, like they're going to come to Comics Launch first, and we're going to hit like 99% of what they need. And that's how you get sort of raving fans. And so that's really, I mean, it is something that I struggle with, because obviously, you look at some of the bigger podcasts and hey, I'm on episode 12 and we just hit 1 million downloads, and it's like, no, that doesn't really happen when you're dealing in a smaller niche, and it's not something that's going to happen overnight. But whenever I'm just feeling down about that, I just go and read a couple reviews and get myself straight. Because but we'll see, we'll see how it plays out over time. And I know it's definitely been something that, has been an interesting experiment. And I've been trying to do it, in a similar fashion of what I did with Comics Tribe, where I'm sort of sharing the results as we go. And so, hopefully, it's something that continues to grow and continues to make an impact, because I'm going to be doing a podcast episode about this, soon, I think for the 75th episode of Comics Launch. But, I'm sort of tweaking our mission a little bit. I want, right now, or at least last I checked, the comics, category on Kickstarter was the number 3 most successful. I think our audience and our, community, is small enough, tight-knit enough, and passionate enough that we could be the number 1 category on Kickstarter. So I'm coming for you, dance, or theater,
what's funny is I was talking to Margot about that when I did Margot Atwell, when I did the Kickstarter one with her, and she said something very similar. She was talking about, we were talking about the difference between books and comics, because I've run both, and they are vastly different animals. And she was saying that that's sort of one of the defining things of comics, is like everybody who's making comic, who's like launching a comic, almost all of them are also making comics, or have thought about making comics, and have wanted to make comics. So that makes everybody sort of in it together in this little, even though it's a little community, it's very tight knit because, of that reason.
Well, yeah. And I mean, and it's not surprising if you spend any time at conventions, because half the, a lot of the sales that you'll get are coming from other creators, or people that are aspiring creators, or people that are buying your book to get you to sign it because they like it, but they also want to pick your brain a little bit. And so I think that's one of the advantages of being in comics. And so that's, I'm sort of doubling down and dedicating more of my just really trying to put more clarity about and definition and definitiveness of purpose, that, hey, that's the target. Like, we want to be number 1. Now, that's not nothing to say that I don't want to be number 1 by having everybody else fall off a cliff. No, I'd love to see the success rate on Kickstarter jump to 50% and plus overall. For all projects, because we know how much effort goes into those things. And it's a shame that 70% of them, overall on the platform don't pan out. I mean, obviously, it's sort of like the unemployment rate. Like, it should never be 100%, because then, and there are some projects that just, shouldn't get funded because they clearly haven't done the homework and would be a disaster for everyone involved.
Thank you for saying that, because I was definitely going to interject and say, yeah, it can't be 100%, because I've seen a lot of janky projects in my day.
Right. And so, but that's why Comics Launch exists. I don't want no janky projects from my listeners. And, something on the episode of Comics Launch that we just recorded, that you guys can go check out if you want to get the other side of this sort of crossover podcasting extravaganza. But you talked about the importance of just really, I totally lost my train of thought there. What were we talking about? I just totally lost it. Man,
the importance of doing things when I'm just going to talk and fill the silence until maybe you can think of it. Otherwise, you can come back to it later.
like, yep, completely lost it.
That's okay. But, I don't remember what I was saying anyway.
No. I got it. Sorry about that. So you were talking about the importance of, if you believe in what you're doing, right, and you believe in your book, and you believe your book is going to have an impact, then you should not feel bad about putting it out in the world, about marketing it, about trying to get people to notice it, trying to get people to understand it, trying to get people to look at it. And I feel the same way about everything that I'm doing with Comics Launch, right? Like, I know that I can help people run better Kickstarter campaigns. And I know that, listening to a single podcast is going to get you, is going to do something that's going to improve where you're going, right? Like even just a single podcast. I know the maximum value that I can get is actually by working with you guys within the courses that I've been building, the Comics Launch course in particular. That's the maximum value I can get, and I also know that by building your campaigns alongside other creators and, building in a group and having people see your project as it develops and not launching and feeling like you're totally alone. I know that makes things so much easier, and it makes your likelihood of being wildly successful. It just shoots up. And so I know all these things. So that it's related to what you came up, and it's why I have no problem, putting this stuff out there. And even though occasionally on the podcast I'll get a review here or there, and there's only been like one or two, but they're complaining, hey, this podcast has some good information, but he talks about his course a little bit too much. And that may be true, but it's also true that I need to I believe it's going to make an impact. I believe it's well in line with that mission to make the comics the comics category the most successful category on Kickstarter. So, I'm gonna make sure you guys know all the opportunities that you have available and all the tools and resources and things. And one of those is the course that I offer. But we've had plenty of people that listen to the podcast or download one of the guides that we have, or just access a little bit of it and go on and have success. And so, it's all good in that regards.
Now let's talk about marketing comics or any books. You've done. I actually want to backtrack for a second,
yeah,
because you did something that you were wildly successful in doing something that I miserably failed at, which is launching a kids book imprint out of your company. And I'd love to talk a little bit about how you were able to transition from doing comics to doing comics and children's books. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that was an interesting and probably, it's the most eye-opening thing that I've done publishing-wise. And, the C is for Cthulhu brand that I built with Jason Charamella and Greg Murphy, it was something that really has built up from scratch, from the bottom up. It was an idea that Jason had in the back of his head for several years, since he has two kids that are, I think they're both either teens and a preteen, or they might even both be teens now. But when they were boys, he was shopping for board books, and they were all A is for Apple, B is for boring, and he's like, where's something cool that this cool dad could read to his kids? And then there was nada. And so H.P. Lovecraft was always a big fan of he was a big fan of his work, and something that he knew that there was also a big audience for. And so he had been toying on an alphabet board book that's built around the work of H.P. Lovecraft. And so I just sort of happened to be working at the game design studio that I worked at with a artist who seemed, I saw him doodling a monster with multiple eyeballs on an envelope one day at work, and I'm like, man, he could probably do pretty well with this project, and we just sort of I put that project together with him, put him and Jason together, and we sort of just drew up a plan that Jay would write the thing and tap into his existing context. Now, Jason's a Eisner-nominated comic book writer, and one of his close friends happens to be Joe Hill, who happens to be a very successful author and horror author. And Jason also over the years has put together a string of good professional contacts, a lot of them in the horror space. So that was helpful. And then Greg is just sort of an unnatural talent, to use Jason Brubaker's phrase. He is a tremendous digital artist, young guy in his 20s, but super professional, and just this book was just totally in his wheelhouse, even though he had next to no knowledge of H.P. Lovecraft or any of that stuff. But the guy knew monsters and knew art and could do a great color palette. So I think part of it was the core of the product was super strong. There was a big why behind it. Jason was filling a need, and he was filling his own need. Obviously, a few years too late for his own kids, but he ended up dedicating it to his cousin or his nephew Brooks, who was, I believe, 2 at the time. And Brooks is actually we use Brooks for one of the marketing pieces that we do that sort of runs on the Facebook ad and that's been shared like 500,000 times. So it's definitely tapping into all of his resources there. But like. I knew with C is for Cthulhu, though, it was such a departure from the comic stuff that while I was going to do some work to pitch and I put together a package for the comics tribe audience, and I had a few successful Kickstarters already under my belt before that, so I had access to sort of comic book fans that have been following Comics Tribe for several years, and I had access to well over 1,000 Kickstarter backers. So it wasn't like we were starting this new venture off from complete scratch, but one of the best things that we decided to do was, after Greg was about halfway through with the book, we decided to just start creating it in public, and sharing the creation process in public. So that was a Facebook page, and that was a Facebook page that was linked to an email opt-in. And so by the time we had launched the first Kickstarter, we had collected only about 250 email addresses and about maybe close to 1,000 likes on our Facebook page. And a lot of that was by showing Greg's like for every character in the alphabet, Greg did, because he's a professional, 4 to 6 concept sketches. And so that we would, and those are the things that get just a ton of engagement, where it's like, hey, which Cthulhu design do you like the best? Well, everybody, A, B, C, D, or E, or F, everybody's got an opinion on Cthulhu, especially if they've already liked the page, right? And so that's something that, that kind of stuff really got engagement, and we really just created in public and developed it in public through the Facebook channel and through the email list. But I did not realize at the time how just the keyword Cthulhu and how powerful Cthulhu stuff on Kickstarter it was, so it caught me by surprise. It caught Jason by surprise. Jason knew that that fan base existed, but it even caught him by surprise, and Greg was blown away as well. So that's just, and in a lot of ways I've sort of kept, while there has been crossover between the Comics Tribe sort of comic audience and the C is for Cthulhu audience, I've really sort of kept 2 separate lists going and 2 separate audience streams and almost 2 separate brands and personalities with those, because I do think while there is some crossover, I do think they are sort of separate brands.
Yeah, that was always the trouble for me because I was trying to build one brand and then suddenly I was building three brands, and especially on a table at a convention, man, there's almost no crossover between the people that want the kids thing and the people that want the adult thing.
Yeah, it's weird. Like the Cthulhu stuff is this odd crossover appeal where it's actually been a benefit at conventions for us, especially now that we have the plush toys, and good God, now that we have the giant Seas for Cthulhu plush, like that's going to be reeling people to the table, right? Like we've got like a 5-foot plush doll now that we'll have at conventions, but it's sort of the doll pulls them in, or the recognizable icon will pull them in, and then we have gotten some good cross sales, and so we've actually been pretty good at being able to sell both, having sort of the Cthulhu wing and then the comics wing. Especially, I think part of that is because the Cthulhu stuff, it still is dark, it's horror related, and a lot of the Comics Tribe books are sort of darker horror and crime thriller and related as well. So there is a lot. You get fans of our horror graphic novels buying the books for their little ones. So when you're sort of going too far, like if we were just doing a regular Pinky and Billy the Elephant go to the zoo, I don't think that would have nearly the kind of success that book it does have.
Yeah, hey, that's what I did, and I can tell you that it won't. Well, it might for you, but it did not. People that like I Can't Stop Tooting would not buy that in conjunction with Katrina Hates Dead shit.
Yeah.
But you do see that. You see that like people are buying, Oxymoron and Seas for Cthulhu as like a package.
Well, here's the thing. Nerds be procreating. and the great thing about the Seas for Cthulhu book is that it's evergreen. And this is something that I haven't totally figured out. I mean, obviously the great, the most successful creator, like modern creator of our time is Robert Kirkman. And why is that? Because he's got an evergreen book and he sold more of volume 1 of The Walking Dead, which he did 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago now. I'm not even sure exactly how long, but he sold more of that graphic novel this year than just about every other graphic novel that was created this year or any year. It's evergreen. And so much of the problem with comics is that we put all this effort into making these books, all this effort, and we launch them as individual floppies, and then we launch them as graphic novels, and they have a shelf life of about a month, and then it just dies off completely. And I haven't been able to entirely solve that problem. I'll be totally honest. I haven't been able to solve that problem at all with the comics. But man, we sold more Cthulhu books this year than we sold last year. And we had a full year of selling it last year after a successful Kickstarter. And, and just on Black Friday, we sold more, Cthulhu books that Black Friday, between Black Friday and Cyber Monday. We may have sold almost as many as we sold during our last Kickstarter. And so it's phenomenal how that book, because it's evergreen, because it's the kind of book that's now become there's probably, a couple hundred people in our audience that this is their go-to book anytime anyone they know has a kid. Having a kid. And we've had some people that, I believe Uncle Sketchy was his Kickstarter name, but he just buys them 5 at a time, and this is his Godfather gift. This is his I don't know what that says about him, but having that ability to have an evergreen book makes it so that you have the possibility of building actually a sustainable publishing business.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't think enough people. I have a saying, which is make it once, sell it forever. Which is you only make this thing one time. It may be incredibly expensive and time consuming. It may take a year, 2, 3 years of your time. But then you've got 27, 37, 40 years, hopefully, to sell it. Your grandkids can sell it. Your kids can sell it. Your great niece can sell it. I mean, you can theoretically, if you make something good and you make it like you were talking about in an evergreen way, something that stands out above the rest, you can make it and sell it for literally the rest of your natural life and at least 87 years afterwards before copyright runs out.
Yeah, and it's so true. And you think about, if you were going to buy like a children's book for somebody, chances are you're going to go to one that I mean, Dr. Seuss probably sold more books than just about most children's authors. And, obviously that's rarefied air, but there was something about what he did and what he was able to do, even when he was still with us and the publishers that work with him that really worked. And so just finding ways to tap into that is, and build things. And then also, like the launch, like the unmarked, like so often we'll do one big push for the Kickstarter, but then what, and trying to find ways to sustainably continue to build audience because, as you said before, there's you don't need all the world to read your book, and 99.999% of the world is never going to read your book. But that also means that there's literally billions of people and hundreds of millions, if not a billion, English speakers on the planet that haven't even had the opportunity to say no to your book. So to just stop marketing it and being on to the next one, as opposed to trying to build sales funnels, build perpetual awareness machines and awareness campaigns to get those new eyeballs or those people that discovered Lovecraft 6 months ago and now their girlfriend is pregnant. Like that, those people are popping up every single day, and that's what's great about the Seers for Cthulhu book. And so I've been trying to go retrofit just about every product that I've done and try to find ways to build more of that into every single product. So that's part of my mission. I mean, I almost want to make 2017 about doing less stuff, but maximizing what we already have out there as opposed to just piling on more stuff on the list. But I don't know that my ADD is going to allow me to do that.
Yeah, it's real tough because I have a similar problem. I have a big board of things and I've been crossing them off all year. And then these things just start coming up. And one of the things when you have a large network of creators is like, kind of want to work with them when they have an opening and like, they're like, hey, do you want to do a thing? You're like, yeah, I've been waiting to work with you for like 5 years. I want to work with you on a thing if I can. So sure, I'll take that on too, because who knows if you're going to be available again.
Yeah, it's a dilemma. And I wish I had the answer for it, but I'm probably the last person you want to talk to about taking on too much or or saying no. Yeah,
we're doing an anthology right now, and the artist that I'm using to do my part of the anthology was like, this would be really cool as a full like thing. Would you want to do that? And I was like, I really do want to do that, and I really do want to work with you, but man, I have a very busy 2017, and when am I going to fit in another launch for a book? Because I'm only one person making one amount of books, and my audience, while I could probably launch 10 things to them, I can't launch 10 things to them all made by me.
Yeah.
So, I totally, so let's talk about the future as we're nearing towards the end of the podcast. I'm sure we're both running out of steam after almost 2 hours straight talking to each other.
Yeah.
So what's coming up next? What can we look forward to in both Comics Launch and Comics Tribe?
All right, yeah. Well, I'll jump into Comics Tribe first. So we've got one brand new series that's on the docket, at least for 2017, and that's called Sync. It's by John Lees and Alex Cormack, both guys who I worked with on Oxymoron: The Loveliest Nightmare. Hell of a creative team. And this book is coming out. We've actually been releasing it and dripping it out to an underground email list. You can actually get and download the first issue of it and get it before anyone else, before it hits the direct market, before just about anyone, before the media.
And if you're not on this list, so I want you to, if you can give the link to it, like it is not my bag. It's a little bit too horrific horror for me. But like as far as the mechanics of how to drip something out as an ephemeral product, like it's a pretty amazing list to be part of.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, this is something that I've been working with John Lees on, and he's really taken it into and made it his own. And so yeah, so sync.comicstribe.com is will get you in the van if you will. But yeah, Sync is basically John doing his almost Twin Peaks-esque version of his native Glasgow in Scotland, and it's sort of like the rotten town that's been forgotten in modern day Scotland called Sink Hill, and all of its Genesis stuff that happens in that series. So it's very exciting. Each issue is a self-contained one-shot, but it builds a larger narrative and a larger tapestry. So it's got everything from killer clowns driving around in a blue van snatching people to a fox mask wearing vigilante with a shovel to a group of vampire hunting kids who get more than they bargained for. It's so John Lees. It's the most John Lees thing ever. And if you haven't read John Lees, he's amazing. And Alex Cormack is doing his best work. So we've got that series, which will be a direct market series. They're sort of setting up a Sync World Tour, so a combination of comic book conventions, comic book shop signings, and there will probably be a Kickstarter to go with that to kick that off. They're making a T-shirt. It's going to be cool. So that's sort of on the publishing side. I do have a couple. I mean, for me, I'll actually be finishing up the Red 10, which is a series that I've been working on since 2010. So was a 10-issue maxi series, and we've put out about an issue and a half every year. And part of that is just the reality of working on multiple projects, but been working with Cesar Feliciano, my co-creator, on that. And we'll finally solve the mystery and release the final issue next year, and hopefully collect that into a giant omnibus.
Yes, I read the first. I was saying on the other podcast, Kraken sent me the Red 10 as a sample of their work, and so I read it, and I got to the end, and I'm like, fudge! It's basically like the Justice League gets trapped and killed off one by the Joker.
That's sort of what we're dealing with, and I know we've had a lot of people that it's been tough to sort of stretch it out as long as we can, but I hope I am very proud with how I wrapped it up. Honestly, it was earlier this year, and it was something that when you do a big mystery, right, you have to know how it ends before you even start it, and you have to have things plotted out and everything. And so I had it all there, but I didn't actually finish scripting the final issue until earlier this year, and I sat down to it, and it actually took me like 3 or 4 weeks before of fits and starts before I could really just suck it up and get into it, even though I had my outline, and I had to basically go back and reread everything and reread all the back matter and all of just everything in that universe to make sure that I was tying up all those ends, that I was, doing justice to the series. And so now it's in Caesar's hands. He's finishing up the final stretch of art, and it's some of his best things. So I'm excited to see how people react to it. And then, and one of the things that now I'm looking at is, well, all right, we're going to be launching a big Kickstarter for it. And so how do I start building the awareness for this project up again to a new audience? And so one of the things that I am looking at is serializing it, perhaps in multiple places. So perhaps the Tapastic, Webtoon, maybe Tumblr, maybe a webcomic as well, and just get it out there and drive that awareness before we go and try to bring sort of what will be the biggest book that Comics Tribe has ever published, a 10-issue sort of tome, plus all back matter, plus the 0 issue, plus everything. So that's going to be a big project, and one that we're going to need a big crowd for. And so I don't want to take anything for granted, even though that I've had crowdfunding success previously.
Right, yeah, and that the thing I loved most were those interstitial pages. I mean, the story's great itself, but the interstitials, all the extra back matter stuff, like that's where that trade was at. Like that's where it hooked me, like going through all that stuff.
Yeah, and Kraken did a great job with it. They did a really cool laminated or spot UV treatment, so it looked like the cover was sort of bleeding. So yeah, we're happy with that. And so that's on the publishing side. Also, there's more Oxymoron coming. Very excited with that. And then we on the comics launch side, the comics launch course begins again in earnest in early January. I've been working with a small group of creators in the list launch course, which is sort of the Kickstarter primer. So I've been working with them to build those email lists up and get them ready and get their foundation in place. And then we start building out those campaigns in early January. And so I'll be opening actually that course for a small window in January to bring on a few additional people to sync up with the people that I've already been working with on the audience building part. So that'll be opening for a small window in January, and then we'll be kicking that off. And then I'm also working on a Kickstarter page design handbook or blueprint that should be an ebook, as well as a really cool infographic and a fold-out poster that I'm going to be giving to all the people that support Comics Launch within Club Comics Launch on Patreon. So a lot of projects going, and trying to focus on them one at a time is sort of my goal for 2017.
Awesome. And you want to pimp your Patreon before we get out of here?
Yeah, go check it out. If you go to comicslaunch.com/club, you can actually download our Kickstarter updates guide. So, you know this, and I preach this on the podcast a lot, but Kickstarter updates are one of the best ways to get more funding in your campaign. And I've actually broken down 19 updates that add funding, excitement, fun, and energy to a Kickstarter campaign with loads of examples. So comicslaunch.com/club lets you download that. And that's just an example of the kind of resources that VIPs that are supporting us over on Patreon get every single month. So that's COMIX launch.com/club. Get that free resource guide. It'll help you send out better Kickstarter updates during your next campaign.
You might need to update that because now you can do a live update on using Kickstarter Live.
Oh man, Kickstarter Live is going to be an absolute game changer.
Dude, when that episode goes live, man, like some of the stuff she was telling me that's possible with Kickstarter Live is freaking insane. Like it integrates with Facebook. I'm not going to spoil it because I want you to listen to that episode too. But like, when she went into the Kickstarter Live stuff. And also, did you know they can do custom referral tags now as well?
I did see that in there. I haven't played with it yet because I haven't launched since they've added that. But yeah, I mean it's a platform that just keeps getting better and better, and that's why I'm so excited to be talking about it, and why there's no danger that even though I'm closing in on 75 episodes on Comics Launch, there's no danger of running out of stuff to talk about because it's an ever-evolving, ever-changing beast.
Absolutely. Okay. Is there anything that you want to impart to our audience that we haven't covered yet?
No, man. I think I just want to tell you to keep doing what you're doing. I think you're just putting out tremendous value on a regular basis, and I know this community appreciates that. And and I appreciate it. And, even if it, on days where it's hard, just keep doing it and keep, sharing your art, because your message is one that people need to hear repeatedly. Like, this stuff isn't easy. Creating's not easy. There's people listening to this toiling away on the next page, or planning their next big project. And sometimes I think we talk about things. It's easy when you're to talk about things as in the past, like they just happened, but none of this stuff just happens. So I appreciate the work that you put in.
Well, man, I appreciate it, and right back at you for sure. I mean, you were one of the big podcasts that I found, like, that got me back into podcasting. So, like, I completely and totally appreciate everything that you're doing as well over there. And I've learned a lot about Patreon in the past few weeks as you're doing your Patreon launch stuff.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. And I'll be covering more on that platform as well, and also I want to dig a little bit deeper to the sort of Patreon Webtoons relationship. So that's something I'm going to be covering up in near term on the podcast as well. So
awesome, man. So if you want to find me, if you're in Tyler's audience and you want to find me, I'm at Twitter and Instagram at Russell Nolte, or thebusinessofart.us. Or wannabepress.com is our publishing company, where you can check out Katrina Hates Dead Shit, Ichabod Jones Monster Hunter, and all the other awesome stuff that we put out. Tyler, you want to make a pitch for where we could find all your stuff for everyone that's in my audience?
Yeah, certainly. You can get any of the Comics Tribe stuff. You can get our hardcovers and softcovers on Amazon. You just search for Comics Tribe. You can also go to shop.comicstribe.com to check out any of our books. You can actually go to comicstribe.com/subscribe, and we'll hook you up with 5 free comics, 5 free number ones, 5 of our best-selling titles. We'd love to give you guys that. And then you can also go download, if you haven't subscribed to the Comics Launch podcast and you plan on launching anything in 2017, we've got some great creators for you. We've got some great ideas for you, and it's a good community that we're building over there. So check out the Comics Launch podcast and put it on your iTunes and get me in your earbuds a little bit more often. That would be great.
So that was Tyler James, host of the Comics Launch podcast and publisher at Comics Tribe. And if you're not listening to the Comics Launch podcast, I highly, highly, highly recommend you check it out at comicslaunch.com. If you like this episode, go find Tyler online and thank him. And if you like this show, please go to iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play, or anywhere else you download your podcast. Subscribe, rate, and review today. It's the best way for us to be found by more people and to make sure you don't miss any episodes. And if you like monsters or anthologies, head on over to monsteranthologycomic.com and check out our new 224-page anthology, Monsters and Other Scary Shit. It's 224 pages of monsters. What's not to like? 30 creative teams who've worked on all sorts of projects ranging from Transformers, My Little Pony, and Invader Zim to companies like Image, Boom, Dark Horse, IDW, Marvel, Vertigo, and more. You can pick up the book, a digital download, and the PDF for just $40, no additional shipping inside the United States. So head on over to monsteranthologycomic.com and pick up your copy today. Thanks a lot, wannabes and creators. I'll see you next time.